Report Story. Chapter 5. Down the Rabbit Hole. Blood in the Water. Did your quirk evolve? Izuku asks, emerald eyes glistening in mirth as he walks through the doors of her agency. It's a comforting sight, seeing him nearly every day, usually with her coffee order and a bagel for the others. And if she enjoys seeing him in different civilian outfits, sue her. It's worth it, come again. She asks, reaching out for her coffee. He slides up close, one hand around her waist, drawing dangerously close as he murmurs, because you take my breath away every time I see you. She blushes, because damn him, he's intoxicating to be around. It's the warmth in her chest as he slides in close, to press of fabric as her fingers curl into his shirt green today like his eyes instead of around her coffee cup. She wants to bite back something witty, but she fumbles, instead grabbing her coffee out of his hand and stomping back to her office. Good morning, Rabbit. Her sidekicks, Slicer and Moonshot chorus. Bagels. Moonshot adds. Blueberry today. He replies, and if there's a hint of laughter in it, she ignores it. She huffs, don't flirt with my sidekicks, storming into her office and around her desk. He ambles in, leaning against the door frame like liquid sin. There's only one person I flirt with, and I think we both know it's just you. She wants to not blush. If she could change her quirk out for one that prevented her from doing so, in the moment, she'd take it. But instead, her cheeks color, and she's not sure her face can get any hotter. He laughs, and she glares at him. It's casual. It's normal. It's not at all the interactions a hero and a villain are supposed to be having. But he's hanging around her agency, greeting the heroes that swing by with the same fanboyish attitude of awe and glee even as they glare at him in suspicion. What brings you in today, Ribbit? Suyu asks, rising from her chair and stretching, cracking her back and neck. She came in early today, which gave Uraraka time to gather her thoughts instead of open the agency. going to be gone for the next couple weeks. He informs, holding out the plastic bag the bagels had been in. He orders Sue a breakfast sandwich, though if there's a hidden joke behind it, none of them voice it to her. She takes it, setting it aside before dropping back into her chair. Where? Uraraka asks, taking a sip of her coffee, and oh, he got her favorite creamer before pulling up her email. She doesn't need to look up to feel the grin spreading across his lips. Why do you ask? Concerned. I promise I'll be safe. She huffs, rolling her eyes. Izuku, you're an internationally wanted villain vigilante. I think it would be more concerning if I didn't want to know where you'd be going. When did you shift to first name basis? Sue asks. Before or after the gravity kiss? Before. Midoriya was too impersonal, and Rabbit could get us in trouble in public. Izuku responds where she faults, too embarrassed to know how to respond. She grounds herself by glaring at him, pointedly ignoring how his lips peel back to reveal those white teeth, that sharp smile. It sends a shiver down her spine now, thinking how 2 weeks ago she'd kissed him, and since then, 2 more times, all in private, and all heated and impulsive and promoted stories. You'll also like. Finished. 28.4K 508 tilde he save all of them, just a smile plastered on his face before disappearing through the wind. Izuku's Harem Academia 188K 1.7 Cust. Read. Mirko X Shy Male Reader 171K 1.1 Key. Don't own MHA. I hope you enjoy the story I made. Convicted Hearts 3700 like my other story but ILI longer. The Kings and Queen Yandere Wakfu X Reader 57.6K 1.8 Kyonder. Wakfu X Reader. Images do not belong to me unless stated. Wakfu does not belong to me, it belongs to Enigma. This is being rewritten in another book on my profile. The Hero Who Sings with a Smile 39.2K 367 Hi. Guys, this is my first story I write on Wattpad. I hope you like it. Feelings. Izawa. X-Reader 57.2K 1.3K RE posting. This until I edit it, sorry if it's not good, it's my first time writing a story. You enroll at UA and you have multiple quirks you are really good at using, why? Uraraka love, and the nicknames. She glares at him, and he winks. Business. The type you don't approve of, but if I'm going to stay in well with my clients, then I need to play more than just one side of the fence. I promise, it won't be anything catastrophic. He assures. Mafia. She guesses. He winks. Now I never said that, now did I? Then he's easing out the door, and she's following him. Through the bullpen, half desperate to squeeze him for information and half desperate for something else. Wait, she catches him at the door, grabs his sleeve. How long? He hesitates, and how he avoids her gaze makes her worry. Depends, but I'll be back. And you'll come back here. She presses, something in her making her desperate. He nods, running a hand through his unruly green hair. She remembers how soft it is, How thick and wonderful it feels to tangle her fingers through it as he's nibbing at her yaw. Case, villain, criminal. Those thoughts later. Maybe. She grits her teeth and fixes him with a look. And I don't think safe is in my vocabulary anymore. He says, bending down, one hand cupping her cheek. But I'll do my best. He promises, kissing her cheek, soft and sweet and restrained. And it still makes her lean into it, still makes her fingers flex, wanting to grab him, wanting to pull him close in a hug or a kiss or anything to stop him from leaving. But he does anyway, slips out the door and disappears, leaving her standing in front of the door, uncertain and scared. It's unfair how he affects her. How he's spilled into her life and upended everything, pushing uncertainty into her steadiness. Putting fear into her daily operation. She groans, combing her fingers through her hair as she heads back. Moonshot, I'm taking your patrol, please. Anything, just tell me where I can get a guy like that. Her sidekick replies. On the most wanted list apparently. She bites out as she picks up her gear. She needs to make a call first, meet someone else. Meet multiple someone else's. Because if there's anyone who would know what to do with him, it would be one of them. Maybe both, or neither, but surely one of them out somewhat no. I already know you're dating him. Izuocha murmurs into the phone. She nearly stumbles, missing the jump to the next rooftop. As it is, she has to activate her quirk and float the extra foot or so across before stumbling forward. How when did you know? She asks. PFT. He huffs. The kid is anything but informal. I got an email after the stakeout, asking me if I would allow him to see you. Personally, not professionally. As if he's some sort of suitor. She hears him groan into the phone again, then another huff. She's probably exhausting his emotional drama capacity for the day, but her life issues are slightly more pressing at the moment. And, she insists, taking her focus from the phone to the street. The coast is clear for the moment, nothing out of the ordinary in her district. There had been one mugging, but nothing that wasn't easily stopped floating the would-be mugger 50 feet up while she waited for the police to arrive. And I think you need to be careful. He responds. Whether you like him or not, you have to remember he's still involved in a completely different world than you are. Even if you get seriously involved with each other, he's a villain Ochako. At best he's a vigilante that helps the mob. Still a crime, still cause for a lot of hurt in the world. She bites her lip, sucking that information in as her own teeth sink into it, another nervous habit she knew she had. Another tick that told her the unsettling feeling in her stomach was more than just anxiety. What if, she started, he got out? Just anxiety. What if, she started, he got out? Izuocha perceptive as always beat her to the punch. Unlikely. He's made this his career for 7 years. And to back out of it for a hero, even if he likes you, doesn't seem to match his character. The revelation is grounding, but it makes her chest hurt. Cold and hard, like swallowing freshly poured concrete. She sighs, taking a seat on the edge of the rooftop. Then I guess, she trails off, both unwilling and unsure if she can voice the words. Because that would make them real. Real like the kisses he'd given her. Real like all the flowers he'd just delivered to her office, with a smile and a cheesy line about how beautiful she was. She groaned. You're in bad for him, aren't you? She sighs, is it that obvious? Izawa snorts, and she can imagine the ridiculous smile on his lips. Oh please. The easiest money I've ever made was betting on who would date who in your class. How much did you win? She asks, because it's an easy topic change, even if a touch uncomfortable. More than my Christmas bonus. And she grimaces, wondering if it's really that bad. Then again, Todoroki had pinned after Yaomomo for so long. She let out a long-suffering sigh. I'll call you back when I've made a decision. She murmurs into the receiver. Sorry to wake you up. Got class in a couple minutes anyway. He grumbles, and she can hear the zipper of his sleeping bag. Let me know. Talk to Yagi. I know he's your next call. She sighs, and hangs up, dialing the next number as she gets up. It rings for a while, and she gets voicemail, but that's not unusual at this point. Yagi never answers on the first call. So she dials it again, and has to wait for it to ring 3 more times before it connects. She hesitates, and instead she hears him hum into the phone in a tentative, Uraraka. And that's all it takes for her to blurt it all out. I think I'm dating a villain, but I don't know if he's a villain, and I think he might be a good guy, but then there's the fact he works with the mob and he's kinda hot. There's a long pause on the other end, and she can't tell if it's because she just word vomited all over him, or if he's actually trying to process what she said. Apparently he does, because his reply is, well, is he a nice boy? I think so. Her reply is meek, tentative at best and fearful at worst. Do you like him? Like him. She bit her lip, groaning softly as she considered. Sunflowers on her desk, her favorite coffee and creamer, bagels for her sidekicks, an easy relationship with Suyu, and a working understanding she had to work nights or mornings some days. Plus it wasn't like he was bad to look at either. But she can't come off as completely over the moon for him. Froppy and Eraserhead say I'm in deep. Would he keep you safe? She hesitates, but she's not sure why. He's quirkless. He's vulnerable, fragile even without that ability. He's perfectly human, absolutely normal, and the only thing standing in between him and death is skill, technique, and whatever trick he has up his sleeve. I'm not sure. She hesitates, swallowing before murmuring. It's Rabbit. He's quirkless. There's a long pause, a deep huff before Yagi's reply. When does your patrol end? We have a lot to talk about if it concerns Rabbit. She checks her watch, 0934. I can swap out with Froppy at noon. Meet you for lunch. I can manage that, he replies. Somewhere close by though, my stomach can't handle eating and walking too far these days. And instantly she regrets the offer. All Might's retirement had hit them hard, but in 6 years since then, his health had hit them all harder. And even if he continued to help them, using his contacts and friends to get their foot in the door of different agencies, he himself wasn't doing well. No, I can. I can make a 2-block walk for lunch. That sandwich shop, he suggests. They make a wonderful soup. Oh, okay. She agrees. I'll see you then. She hangs up, tentative and hesitant as she starts back on her patrol route. There's something hidden there. Something between Rabbit and Yagi, something that's painful and franken. She wonders if one let the other down. But that thought has to wait, because even if she's going through a crisis, she's still a hero. And any robbery isn't going to happen on her watch. And even though she'd much rather call Sue and get her to come early, rush forward with a brunch instead of lunch with Yagi-sensei, she instead leaps into action, floating across the street to the opposite side. She cancels her quirk, dropping down into the alleyway, right in the middle of a scene. 2 muggers, dressed in suitable fashion, and a young woman, clutching her purse. But the purse is forgotten as the 2 men turn towards her, forgetting their supposed mark as they ease back further into the alley. She clicks her headset. Mugging on Market, side alley next to trophy shop. She murmurs. There's a pause, and in it she approaches the 2 men. The alley dead ends, and it makes her wonder where these guys think they're going. Going turns out to be the wrong word. Doing is a better one. The wall behind her shifts, folding in to block her off. Another section folds in to block her from jumping and floating off. With 2 thugs that she suddenly and the result is she's trapped in with 2 thugs that she suddenly realizes she doesn't know either of their actual quirks. One she can assume is building manipulation. The other she can only guess. Trapped in with them, one moved the buildings, she mutters into the comm. She reaches behind her, slowly pulling out one of her support items. It's a simple baton, but it adds reach and damage to her attacks, and lets her get in close enough to use her quirk. Where is he? She pauses, considering them. One looks like a brick house, skin red and plastered with mortar, just like an actual wall. The other was thinner, reminding her of a scarecrow. He who? She replies, bringing the baton up and settling into a tentative stance. Scarecrow edges forward, fingers flexing carefully. There didn't block the ceiling above them, and it makes her wonder if they assumed she'd run. Unlikely. She was a hero, not a coward. Scarecrow flicks his fingers out, and it take a moment for her to understand why. She feels the prickles, and then she understands, needles. He flicked needles at her. She readjusts her visor, locking it in place before charging in. Distance can't help her, and even if Bricks interferes, he has to have a limit. Rabbit. She leaps for needles, and he dances away, and a swath of the wall leaps out of the building. Narrowly she twists, avoiding the worst of the damage as they graze her, and she spills onto the floor. Needles leaps forward, pressing both heels to her palms. He stomps on her hand, and she yelps, letting her baton fall out of her hands. What do you want with the rabbit? She asks. A needle digs into her shoulder, and she flinches, ignoring the pain to instead focus on Bricks. The man hasn't moved, and instead seems to be looking around. Her gaze lowers to Brick's feet. They're sunken into the ground, integrated with it. He's got a deal for us, but hasn't shown. You've been around him lately. He playing for the heroes now. Bricks answers, and his voice matches the nickname, deep and rocky. We don't talk business, she replies. What did he do? Piss off your seller. Papa DiMaggio isn't just a seller. Needles snarks. Papa DiMaggio. Good to know. She twists, leveraging her body to buck Needles off, sending him to the floor. She tags him as he falls, and with a yelp, she sends him into the brick ceiling. Bricks is slow to start, and the bricks he summons from the wall are slower to defend. She weaves through them, tagging him before herself. She jumps, clearing the entrapment easily and landing on the top of the building. She peers down at them, where Bricks has not yet floated away, his feet still ingrained in the floor. Update. 2 mob perps in the alleyway. She chips into her comm. They might have information on Rabbit if we're lucky. She reaches around, grimacing as she fumbles for the needle in her back. She gets it, plucking it out and examining it. A singular drop of blood glistens on the tip. What are you up to, Izuku? And the drop falls, tumbling down through the air before it lands in the alleyway. Bricks looks up, smiles at her, and she realizes that the building she's on is still his territory. She keys her comm. Needles and Bricks, she informs. Needle thrower is incapacitated, but I'll need someone stronger to help out.
Shut the fuck up.
With Bricks. And she jumps away from the building, starting the second round of the fight. On our way. And she blessedly recognizes the voice as Kirishima. Red Riot versus a brick wall. She smiles, and supposes the media will finally get an answer to that joke. Chapter 6. If she is being honest with herself, talking to Yagi didn't relate to talking to All Might, number 1 hero 6.5 years ago, and symbol of peace. For some reason she just can't associate the frail-looking man who shakes and coughs up blood with the steadfast man that cowed villains and criminals with a glance. Busy patrol? Yagi asks, easing into his chair slowly. It's the little things that betray how difficult moving around is for him. Somewhat, she replies, giving him a smile that she doesn't quite feel. Ran into 2 thugs I think were from the mob. Gave me a name I need to look into later. That's good. He picks up the menu, and if either of them notices that his hands shake, they don't comment on it. They make small talk. What Yagi is ordering, how he's been feeling. She asks how physical therapy is going, and he laughs and says it's much the same, slow improvement if any at all. He orders soup, she orders a sandwich. They both get water. He comments about the weather, she agrees it's getting colder, and that she's not looking forward to it, even if she prefers her winter costume to her summer. And when their waitress finally sets their food down and walks away, Uraraka is ready to burst with the one topic she's been pointedly ignoring for the duration of their lunch. Tell me about Rabbit. Yagi glowers at her, his sunken eyes considering her for a while. He picks up his spoon, mindlessly dipping it into his soup and then into his mouth. He hums softly at the flavor, or the warmth. She's not sure. Honestly, with how much the rest of him suffered under his quirk, she wonders if the man even has taste buds. Rabbit was going to be a hero. He finally says, voice heavy as he dips his spoon back into his soup. He swirls it but doesn't take another bite. Izuku Midoriya is what he went by then, though if that name has changed, I don't know what to. You knew the identity of Rabbit? She asks, and didn't tell Eraserhead. He shrugs and offers a long-suffering sigh. When I met young Midoriya, he was a shining light of determination. To think he could become the Rabbit is off-putting, to say the least. She shifts, taking a small bite of her own sandwich, but it looks like Yagi is lost in his own thoughts. She swallows, takes a sip of water, waiting. A minute passes, and he takes another bite of soup, gaze distant. So, she nudges him forward with do you know what caused that change? He blinks, the foggy look in his eyes gone as he replies, I caused it and it's one of the worst mistakes I've ever made in my life looking back. She rocks back in her chair at the revelation. Yagi, All Might was the reason Izuku became a villain. What did you do? He hums, but the expression is sour. He asked me if a quirkless boy could become a hero and he hedges, shifting in his seat. And I told him no, I crushed that dream of his, and I had the opportunity to make it come true for him. But I gave that dream to a boy that already had the ability to become a splendid hero. She frowns at that, connecting the dots to how All Might had shepherded Mirio around much of her UA years. He had been so focused on that class, had been so focused on Mirio's performance. You crushed his dreams, she asks, gaze falling to her plate, but suddenly not hungry. He nods, then sighs. And it's my fault that he's in this line of work. He chose the path he's on because of those words. You should not, will never, become a hero. He echoes the words, shaking his head. What sort of man am I to tell those crushing words to a child? She stews on the words, finally letting necessity overrule want as she picks up her sandwich. I think in some ways you were realistic. She finally decides, taking a bite and chewing thoughtfully. It tastes sour, but she's sure that's just the words, not the sandwich. Quirklessness is a difficult thing to struggle with, especially in today's world, where so many have a quirk, so many have that power. He'd have been subjugated to hate and discrimination no matter where he went. She trails off, uncertain. Much less in the hero industry. Yagi huffs and shakes his head. But I could have said anything different. I could have advised him to be a police officer, or a soldier, or AA. He lets out another long-suffering sigh before slumping against the table. I could have given him my quirk. There's a pause, and audible shift, as if he realized what he said, but instead of flinching away from it, he just sighs again, leaning back in his chair and pressing one hand against his stomach. Uraraka hums, filing the line away for later. They had all suspected, being Class 1A, that All Might's quirk had somehow been passed on to Mirio. The boy had gone from just having permeation, to emitting yellow sparks as he moved, fought, and even, at the end there, black tendrils of something coming out of his hands, like lassos or cabling. They hadn't asked. Not after the overhaul fiasco. Not after all the trial and error and fear it had taken for him to even get permeation back a year later. No one had wanted to ask about the other parts of his quirk. No one wanted to ask why it physically pained All Might to look at Mirio in that hospital bed. Now is later, and if it involves Rabbit somehow, she wants to know. You gave Mirio your quirk, the strength, the whips, the energy about it. She sat forward in her chair, when you could have given Izuku it at the start. He nods, sunken eyes dropping down to examine the spoon he still held in his hands. He fiddled with it, before reaching up, dropping it into the soup bowl in front of him. And now Mirio doesn't have it, and I don't, and it's only a miracle we avoided disaster without it. He sighs again. Disaster. She hums, have you had contact with Izuku since then? He hesitates, then nods. Twice. Once a year after he disappeared. He was in costume then, same rabbit-like outfit, same mask. He smiles at that, but it looks sad. He modeled it after me, did you know that? Sad. He wanted to steal the smile from a hero and make sure people could see it on a villain instead. Since I'd. He shakes his head. He stopped by. He finishes. Anything special about it? No, explained his costume. Told me he wore a grin because he stole it off my face. Told me I was the reason for his choice. And he shook his head. Told me I couldn't make it right. Nothing could. And the next time, couple months after the overhaul incident, gave me a flash drive with a smile and a laugh. Told me that even if I betrayed him, he didn't want to kill unnecessary people. That flash drive gave us what we needed for a raid on the League. Told us everything from their numbers to their building layout. He shakes his head. Cost us a lot of heroes to contain all that, but I can only imagine what would have happened if we were even a day late. She remembered that day, had been stationed out in the woods with her classmates and watched in fear as the entire building collapsed, the walls disintegrating. Had been caught in some mix of fear and hope as the building fell apart, as casualty reports came in, as villains trooped out, locked in handcuffs and heroes came out on stretches or carried out bloody and broken by their comrades. He gave you that information? She asks. Said it took a while. Then smiled at me and left. He didn't come in the costume, just knocked on my door and walked in like an old friend. Uraraka shifted in her seat, unsure how she felt about all of that. On one hand, it meant that Izuku-kun instituted and helped coordinate one of the biggest villain busts of all time, and stopped Shigaraki, the leader of the League, in his tracks, before whatever bizarre experiment could take place. On the other hand, it meant he'd sat on that information until he could do anything with it, hoarding all the pieces instead of filing them properly with the heroes. He'd kept them out of the loop until he needed them, and while he'd given them the information, if he'd given it earlier, it might have saved more lives. And it meant one more thing. 3 days after Shigaraki's arrest, he disappeared. The only thing recovered, a hand. Freshly detached, and matching Shigaraki's fingerprints, DNA, and skin pigmentation. No one ever found Shigaraki. Not the body. Not any other body part. Just one hand. I've only killed 3 people. One deserved it, one really deserved it. She swallows. Had Izuku killed Shigaraki? Ochako. She jerks, blinking back to the present as she looks at Yagi. You looked a bit scared there. Is something wrong? What were you thinking about? Do you think Rabbit is capable of murder? She asks. He hesitates, grumbling something before scratching the back of his head. I suppose. He finally says, he is a villain, of a sort. And I know he's got connections. I wouldn't say it's his style, but I would put it past him. She nods, hesitating with the next bit of information. But she relents, because out of all her senseis, Yagi was special. Special in the way he transitioned from a role model, to a teacher, to a father figure for the entire class. He said he killed 2 people. Both deserved it due. She fiddles with her fingers, clasping her hands together to ground herself. Do you think he could have killed Shigaraki? It's silent for a time. Quiet and unsettlingly so, because Yagi's expression is severe, a grimace set so firmly into his face that she's afraid it might stick. And it's so unlike the gleaming smile he'd so often give them that it makes her feel a rush of cold. If so, then I'm afraid he might have crossed a line that we can't pull him back from. You can't murder another living being and come out completely fine on the other side. Much less 2. And she can't find it in herself to continue the conversation. Not with that line weighing on her stomach. So, she smiles and nods, and then pointedly shifts the conversation to another topic. On if he'd heard anything from Shoto and Kriti, if he'd seen their engagement photos yet, really nice ring. But she's half wondering if Momo made the diamond herself, if he'd heard anything about anyone else in their class. Red Riot went up a rank to number 23 this year, and how the new UA class was going. Terrible. Aizawa already expelled 3 kids right out the gate, another 2 at the first test. And if she's still not feeling quite right when she sees him off, watching him meander down the street, hands shaking as they skate over passing railings and other handholds, then that's her business. It's her business if she feels sick to her stomach. It's her business if she wants to know what all Izuku had done. It's her business if she's worried about him now. It's her business if she's scared, unsure if he'll be what she wants him to be, or if she's just another pawn in his game of chess. He's already infiltrated the League of Villains, something the heroes could only do with Hawks apparently, and only to a minor degree. And he'd gotten everything, skated in and swiped all their data, all their plans, and crushed them at the heart of their schemes. How much easier would it be to slide into her agency, woo her like a cheap date, and pull her into some twisted plot? It's her business if that line of thinking hurts. Hurts so much she can't breathe. Hurts so much that the strangled sob that slides out of her throat makes her flinch. It makes her activate her quirk, steal away her own gravity and launch herself up to the nearest rooftop to hide. Because she's not sure if Izuku is lying to her. And she's not ready to know if he is yet or not, and she's not ready to acknowledge that if he is, then it would hurt so much more than just one crummy date with Bakugo, or an awkward romance that fizzed out long before it started with Iida. It would be devastating. And she's not sure if she's ready for the lie that might be their relationship to sink to the hard truth that it would never work out between a hero and a sometimes villain. Where stories live. Discover now.